I'm gonna be honest, my first impressions on going into the Ys series probably wasn't the best. My first Ys game was Ys Memories of Celceta, and honestly, while the game wasn't bad, it was honestly pretty bland, and I really wasn't all that excited about trying out more games in this series. Unfortunately, I'm probably dating a certain Adol Kristen's biggest fangirl, so she wasn't going to let me pass up on this one. And honestly, I'm really thankful for her for pushing me to play this game, as Ys 9 Monstrum Nox is such an adventure that I don't think I'll be forgetting it anytime soon. Ys 9 is one of the many chapters in the book of the life of Adol Kristen. In this adventure, Adol and Dogi find themselves in the city of Balduq, the former capital city of the Kingdom of Gallia, a new state in the Roman Empire. However, Adol finds himself in a bit of trouble the moment he tries to enter the city. Apparently, all of Adol's previous adventures have caught up with him, and is wanted by the Roman government on suspicion of, well, just about everything. So yeah, the game pretty much has you starting at rock bottom, and we gotta crawl our way out. And crawl we do, as it'll take more than an inescapable prison to contain Adol the Red. However, in Adol's escape, he comes across an interesting woman who offers to help him escape the authorities. She does this by, well, shooting him. But instead of killing him, it transforms Adol into this thing known as a monstrum, and it's giving him newfound powers under the name of the Crimson King. With this newfound ability, Adol is able to escape the prison and lay low to try and figure out what in the world is going on. The story of Ys 9 is honestly really special. It gives across this hopeless and depressing atmosphere where everything feels like it's progressively getting worse somehow, with no real way out of it. Even then, there was still a small light of hope that existed in the people around us. Ys 9's story is very compelling and engaging, and throughout the whole ride I was wanting to know what in the world was going to happen next. The twists and turns this story puts you through may leave your head spinning at times, but honestly it's done in the best possible way. However, the real glue holding the entire story together would have to be the characters that surround Adol. Like I mentioned earlier, Adol is now a monstrum, a curse given onto him by the strange Lady Aprilis. He is now at her beck and call to fight what is called the Grimwald Nox, and prevent the darkness from entering into the real world. But Adol is not doing this alone. Joining Adol are 5 other monstrums who will be making up your party as the story goes on. As the story progresses, you learn that each monstrum has their own life in Balduq outside the curse, just like Adol. Well, outside of the whole escaped fugitive thing anyway. And each monstrum will join your party the further you go into the story, all working at your new bar that acts as a front for your hideout. In terms of the cast of monstrums, you have a party of characters here that really stick out, and that really play off each other very well. Where she may seem like she's supposed to be this smug little kitten, but she is really one of the sweetest and most adorable things in the world, and acts almost like a little sister to Adol throughout this adventure. Then there's Hawk, my personal favorite. He is set up to be like a rival of sorts towards Adol. He is someone who wants to fight every person who he seems to be worthy to prove his own dominance. This adds a nice deal of banter between him and the rest of the crew. Then you have Doll, who is a bit alien towards human nature, but her bluntness can be needed sometimes when everyone else wants to beat around the bush. Plus, her in her regular form is just adorable. Then you have the Raging Bull. She is seen as almost like a motherly figure towards the group. And finally, you have Renegade, who is a bit of a loner, but is able to bring a lot of depth to the party. By the end of the game, I had really fallen in love with each and every one of these characters, and wanted to see their struggles through to the very end. The amazing characters really don't just stop at the main party either. Adol is a criminal on the lam, and will have to rely on many different confidants if he wants to be able to succeed. Throughout the game, you'll be given infiltration missions that have you breaking into Balduq prison to free people who have been wrongly imprisoned. These characters become mainstays at the Dandelion, and have their own stories that you're able to see evolve throughout the rest of the game. It's honestly surprising that these characters are tied behind that of side quests and not part of the main story. I honestly think you'll be losing out on a large portion of the game's story if you decide to just play it straight through and go only on the critical path. The way this game integrates completion of side content alongside the story made me want to try and finish just about everything before I went into the final battle. The overall story of Ys 9 was just a real treat from start to finish. It was able to provide this amazingly weird feeling of desperation and despair throughout the whole adventure, but at the end of the day, no one gave up hope. The amount of twists and turns that the story puts you through was really worth the playthrough alone. Also, while my experience of Ys games may be limited to just Memories of Celceta, and what little I've played of Ys 8, Ys 9 surprisingly fleshes out Adol as a character in so many ways than I would have expected. While he is normally a silent protagonist, they were able to make him seem like such an amazing character for the different dialogue options you were able to get, and his simple reactions to the events that were happening around him. Honestly, the story of Ys 9 has to be one of my favorites that Falcom has put out, and the character development in this game is able to rival that of a Trails game. Unlike previous Ys titles, you will not be exploring a vast, uncharted area, but instead you'll be spending most of your time exploring the huge city of Balduq. And you really wouldn't think that exploring a city in this kind of game would actually feel so good. The amount of area that you have to explore is downright huge, and you can easily get lost trying to get from one part of town to another. But what makes exploring this city feel so good is the amount of freedom you have in your movement. One of the best gameplay mechanics in Ys 9 is easily the shared ability system. As your party grows, you will unlock more and more monstrum abilities that will help you on your journey, but the ones I want to focus on the most are the ones that play into movement. You have the ability to use Adol's Crimson Line, which acts as a bit of a hookshot. While you are limited to certain ledges and places you can hookshot onto, there are plenty of them to provide some really solid and quick movement across Balduq. When Hawk joins the party, you unlock the ability of Hunter's Descent, which is a gliding function, and as long as you have the meter to keep doing it, you can mix and match these two abilities for some pretty fluid movement across the city. While the game does offer the ability to fast travel, I would often find myself gliding and hookshotting from point A to point B, because it was honestly just so much fun to do so. This also made searching for collectibles a lot more fun too, as while exploring the city with these abilities, I would find hidden things in places that I would never have thought to look through normally. I really do hope the series going forward puts a good amount of attention to mobility as this game. Now let's take some time to talk about the combat itself. Well, it is an Ys game, and for the most part, the combat is really, if it isn't broken, don't fix it kind of deal. If you were coming into this off of Ys 8 or like Memories of Celceta, the combat will pretty much feel right at home for you. You can switch between 3 different monstrums to play as at any time, each one with their own strengths and weaknesses, and all of them are really fun and interesting to use. Yeah, I know, kinda vague, but there isn't really much to say. The combat is still just as good as ever, but it's insanely improved thanks to the increased mobility I mentioned before. You have the ability to use your shared skills in battle too, which can lead to some inventive ways to play. I loved using the Crimson Line to go from enemy to enemy of constant fluidity, or say a boss just knocks you away. Well, no need to worry, if you're locked onto them, just hookshot your way back to them and continue the onslaught. Also, being able to glide was really helpful during certain boss fights as well, as it provided some inventive ways to dodge enemies too. So, at the end of the day, the combat really is just Ys. It's one of those combat systems that, no matter what they do, it just seems to be getting better and better and still just as fun to play as it was in the previous entry. The only real issue I could find myself having with the combat itself was the lock-on system. I just could never get the hang of it while I was playing. The game provides no way to choose which enemy to lock onto, and just makes a guess at the closest enemy that's near to you. This becomes a huge issue during the Grimwald Knock segment of the game, as being able to Crimson Line to an enemy breaching your defenses quickly becomes really important. Also, the final boss puts on full display as to how funky the lock-on system could be, but outside of that, the combat really is just pure action bliss. The final gameplay thing I wanted to mention was how you unlock the ability to explore most of the world. When you first start out, you have a small yet sizable amount of Balduq to explore. In order to open up more, you need to trigger a Grimwald Knocks, and this can be done one of 2 ways, by clearing out random encounters of monsters that may appear around the city, or by completing the amazing sub-stories in this game. The recommended way, of course, is the sub-stories, as not only does it fill up the meter faster, you get to play through some amazing stories as well. Once you're able to, an orb will appear allowing you to trigger the Grimwald Knocks. For those who have played Ys 8, this may seem similar to you as it's heavily inspired off the raid system. In most of them, you'll face waves of monsters that will attack a center gem that Aprilis is, doing something with. Don't ask, just fight. These encounters can range in difficulty, with them becoming more and more trickier as you progress. There are also ones that you'll need to clear out a certain amount of enemies in a time limit. These aren't as common, but they will make you think and encourage you to use the game's mobility to your advantage to stay ahead of the timer. I always found both of these to be incredibly enjoyable. This is just nothing but pure action as you fight through waves of enemies coming at you, so any excuse to fight more is always welcomed in my book. Once it's clear, you'll be able to explore even more of the city. Now let's talk about the overall presentation of Ys 9. Like I mentioned earlier, the majority of the city takes place in the capital city of Balduq, and you may notice right away the city is a bit, well, drab. Even all the dungeons you explore are just an extension of Balduq and the giant prison that sits in the center of it. And while the design of things certainly changes as you progress through the game, the feel and style pretty much stays persistent throughout the whole game. Now, some may find that a bit jarring to be going through what feels like one giant connected dungeon that's under one giant seeming looking city. However, I feel like this actually added a lot more to the game's overall feeling and presentation more than say a vibrant looking city would. The entire theme of this game is pretty much sorrow and depression with only a few sparks of hope. The city itself gives off that feeling in so many ways. While yes, all of Balduq does feel drab, it honestly should feel that way. This is a prison city after all. And while the people of Balduq may be free, they are still in a sense imprisoned. This metaphor can also apply heavily to the Monstrum as well, as they are unable to leave the borders of the city and are in a sense just trapped in an even bigger prison outside of the prison. It was due to all of this that made this entire atmosphere of the game mesh well for me, and even though the city may feel drab, there are still many nice sights to see as you're gliding and zipping around the city. Another nice small thing I loved about Ys 9 is that Balduque actually feels lived in. More times than not, there are too many games with worlds this big, but they just feel empty and abandoned. I can give Falcom a lot of credit for this. Whenever I visit a town or a city in their games, they do a good job to make it feel like it's actually to scale and that there are people who are living here and going about their day-to-day lives. This is helped even more by the fact that the people around town will actually comment if you rush into them, or if they see a monster moving around the city. And that's only the static NPCs. There are a decent amount of NPCs in whom you can talk to as the game progresses to get their opinions on the happenings in the city and the plot. While not as detailed as, say, a Trails game, this is still very much appreciated, as it would add so much flavor to Balduque that I would constantly roam around the city in search of people to talk to. Staying on topic of the presentation, I want to talk about how amazing the soundtrack for Ys 9 is. Every single track in this game just hits in their own special way, and I have just fallen in love with this game's soundtrack. The music choices used for fighting and for bosses just get your blood pumping for the battles that you're in, and makes you want to keep fighting all the way until the bitter end. The music that plays around the city of Balduque also does a good job of proving my point earlier on how depressing the city can feel, and it's great that the music can help amplify that even more. Every single music track feels crafted for the context and scene that they're in, and that's why I love the music in this game even more so. Sure, it's one thing to listen to the music out of context and not really like it or get it, but once you hear it played where it was made for, it adds all the difference in making the tracks in this game stand out even more. Honestly, I think the biggest negative to my playtime in this game was the constant crashing I endured while playing this game. During the pre-release, there was an issue only present in the North American PS4 version when you attempted to play it on the PlayStation 5. There were random parts of the game that would constantly crash me back to the PlayStation 5 home screen, and at worst, shut down my entire system. This was only present on the PS5, and as of writing this review, there has since been a launch patch that has fixed this issue. But I feel like I need to mention it because there are many times where a cutscene would crash, and no matter how many times I tried to play through that scene again, the game would keep crashing. The only way to remedy this was by skipping the scene altogether. Crashing during gameplay, I was okay with because there's an amazing autosave feature, but during the story, oh boy, that took me out of everything going on. I guess I am really sore about this because I was a victim of one of these crashes during the final cutscene, so I had to fight the final boss all over again and skip a decent chunk of the ending scene. All of that being said, now that the issues seem to be fixed, or will be fixed completely in the future, the PS5 backwards compatibility will be the best way to play this game if you're not looking into the future PC version. Through my time, the game managed to constantly hold 60 frames per second, even when things got insanely hectic during the Grimwald Nox. Hell, I was even dumb enough to try it on Lunatic, where even more monsters showed up, and from what I could see, not a single frame was lost. If you own a PS4 Pro, there's also a bit of enhancement as well, making sure your frame rate is a bit steadier. But unfortunately, I have not heard many good things about the performance in the base PS4. Unfortunately, I can't really confirm or deny that because I only played this on my PS5 while I had my girlfriend play it on her PS4 Pro. 2021 has only just begun, and man, Ys 9 The Monstrum Nox is easily an early contender for Game of the Year. After playing through the slog that was Memories of Celceta, this game was a huge breath of fresh air for me, and honestly made me a huge fan of the Ys series right away. I look forward to seeing where Falcom takes the series going forward. And for those of you who are wondering, Ys 9 is also a great starting point for those of you who haven't played an Ys game before and want to try one out for yourself. I honestly could not recommend a better starting point for this series. I am honestly really grateful for my girlfriend's desire to fuck at all, I mean, show others how amazing this series is, as it was her passion for these games that made me want to give it another shot. And that does it for our review of Ys 9 The Monstrum Nox. Yeah, sorry about this review taking a bit longer than it should have. I'm balancing a lot of things right now when it comes to school, work, and all that, but I'm finally happy to get this review out. And the best part of this review is I get to announce a giveaway for Ys 9. That's right, I'll be teaming up with NIS America and giving away 2 copies of Ys 9 The Monstrum Nox for the PlayStation 4, which is also backwards compatible with the PS5. So if you want to find out how you can win a copy of Ys 9, there will be a link in the description below going to a video directly to the giveaway for which you can enter. I'm not sure when the giveaway is going to end as of right now, but odds are if you're seeing this review after, I want to say April 5th, the giveaway is probably over. Anyway, if you have any questions, comments, or anything about Ys 9, leave them down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you guys on this. Also, if you're new to my channel, finding out for the first time through this review, hey, be sure to subscribe for future reviews, commentaries, streams, and more. And as always, everyone, thanks for watching.